Procurement Minister Anita Anand joins us now from Ottawa. Minister, thank you for being there. Happy Friday. There's good news today, I guess, for Canada. The government has signed an agreement with AstraZeneca to supply up to 20 million doses of vaccine. I'm wondering if this is the most promising one. How do you go about and decide to sign a deal with a company? What is your standard? Is this a promising vaccine? Are they close to the finish line?
Well, thanks for that fantastic question. And it allows me to explain the process that we undertake in terms of making decisions about our procurements with regards to vaccines. We are taking our advice from the Vaccine Task Force, which is comprised of experts in the field. And we are also following the recommendations of the Public Health Agency of Canada, who give us our marching orders, essentially. And prior to us making our procurements, we need to follow the science. And taking the advice of the Public Health Agency of Canada and the Vaccine Task Force allows us to do just that. So I personally, as Minister, am not making decisions about the most promising vaccine candidates. Those decisions are made by the scientists. My expertise in complex contracting and my department's expertise in this area then allows us to go forward and procure contracts with these vaccine suppliers, and one of which is AstraZeneca that I announced today.
But there are a lot of other ones: Sanofi, Johnson & Johnson, Novavax, Pfizer, Moderna. There's a whole bunch of them. And I guess, yes, you explained the process. It's a kind of shopping around, but it's also a betting game, is it not? I mean,
yes,
do we know that all these companies
to some extent, there is a concern with making sure that we have bets on multiple horses at the same time, because we are not sure which horse is going to be the winner or winners, which vaccine will cross the finish line first. And so in the interests of Canadians' health and safety, we have to be sure that we have access to multiple vaccines at the same time. And as a result, we are able to mitigate the risk that we wouldn't have that access. And you may know that I also announced with the Prime Minister today the investment in the COVAX facility, which also will provide us with access to additional vaccines. And that, again, is part of our diversification strategy.
And I know that it's difficult to give Canadians a timeline, because everybody, you know, the conversation out there with non-scientific people is this will all be over when we get a vaccine.
Yes.
Do you have any idea when that could be?
Let me tell you that the negotiations with each of the vaccine suppliers are extremely complex, and they're not standard form negotiations. There's no standard form contract. We are negotiating very hard with each supplier. But one thing I can tell you is that we have been negotiating very hard on delivery dates, making sure that Canada is well positioned for access to vaccines very early, and we are looking at early 2021 for Canada. If it is the case that a vaccine supplier is developing and has developed a vaccine that is approved by Health Canada earlier than that, we will, of course, rely on our very strong relationships with vaccine suppliers and aggressively work to accelerate that timeline. I will say that by signing on to the COVAX facility, we also have the ability to gain vaccines from that facility, which may in fact be earlier than the bilateral transactions that we've entered into. And so our process of diversification across vaccine suppliers, including with the COVAX facility, has allowed Canada to stand in very good stead when a vaccine or vaccines is developed.
Yeah, I understand that, Minister, but you stand in good stead, but you also stand in line behind probably bigger clients than yourself. I'm thinking of the United States, I'm thinking of the European Union, just to name a few. So we are in line for these vaccines, but there are no guarantees that we will be the first client served. There's no guarantees that when we are eventually served that there will be enough vaccines for everybody. Am I right?
Joyce, actually, I think that's a mischaracterization of the procurement efforts that the Canadian government has made and the contracts that we have signed. There's no one line for these vaccines, not at all. In fact, we have diversified the places in which the vaccines that we are procuring are being manufactured for this very reason, so that we will have early access to the vaccine. So I very much take issue with the characterization that this is one single line. In fact, with 6 contracts in place and with access to multiple more vaccines through the COVAX facility, Canada is extremely well placed to have early access to those vaccines.
No, I am not saying that we're standing in line for only one of these vaccines. You're standing in line for 6 of them, and I'm sure Canada is not the only country who has struck deals with these pharmaceutical companies. Others have done the same as we are doing. That's what I'm saying. Not in line with this one, but today, the one you signed today or you announced today is 20 million doses. There are more Canadians than 20 million doses. So in order to help people understand how this process will work, how fast this will happen, and what are our chances of getting these vaccines, how far behind in the lineup we are with the 6 companies that we have struck deals with. We're not the only one. Other countries have done the same. So I understand what you say, and I'm not at all belittling huge efforts that you may be making. All I want to do here is just a sort of reality check. And avoid a sort of letdown like what's happening now.
Sure.
With the long lineups that people are seeing to get tested. We were promised these very rapid tests. We were promised that tests could be available, that those who wanted tests could have tests. So in order not to have another huge disappointment and more angry Canadians, I'm just trying for just a simple reality check. So let me go ask you about now.
Can I respond to that,
Please
actually,
do.
Joyce? I do think it's inaccurate, though, to put that issue to Canadians like we need a particular date on which they will be able to have access to a vaccine. There is uncertainty in this situation. There's uncertainty with regards to the clinical trials that each vaccine developer is in the midst of at the current time. There is uncertainty regarding Health Canada approval. Once the clinical trials are complete, the vaccine developers are going to go to Health Canada to have their approval. Then we need to make sure that the manufacturing capability is up to the standards of Health Canada in terms of the safety and security of manufacturing. Then we will be ensuring transportation and distribution to Canadians. And so to simply ask for one single date is wholly inaccurate. We need to have the context. And the context is that in an uncertain environment, Canada now has access to up to 282 million doses from several vaccine manufacturers, which stands it in extremely good stead relative to all other countries that we will be ready for Canadians.
I did not want to know a specific date for one vaccine, but let me ask you about rapid testing now. Some countries have already started their rapid testing. They have clearly been tested in those countries. I'm thinking of Germany, I'm thinking of the UK, and we're still waiting for ours, and there's still a lot of people waiting in line. There's a lot of anger out there in those lineups, Minister. So I'm wondering, when do you see this rapid testing being available in Canada?
Well, as the Minister of Health and our Prime Minister have continually said, it's extremely important for us to respect the science and respect the process that Health Canada, as the regulator, undertakes. And that is a distinguishing characteristic, I think, in Canada relative to other countries. We do take the science very seriously, and once the regulatory approval has been granted, we will certainly be sure to be able to distribute those tests.
Let me ask you this, Minister. So once they are approved, have you already purchased these tests as you were doing, or have you signed a contract with the makers of these tests to have them available as soon as Health Canada approves them?
By all means, it's an excellent question, Joyce. And of course, just as we have been very aggressive with the vaccine contracts, we are also being very aggressive with rapid testing contracts, and we are maintaining very solid relationships with the manufacturers of these rapid tests. We are putting in place contracts that are conditional on Health Canada approval, so that when those tests are approved, we are immediately ready to go out and procure tests for distribution to Canadians.
Procurement Minister Anita Anand, thank you so much for your time. I wish you a wonderful and safe weekend, ma'am.
You too, Joyce. Take care.